A conversation with NFL Network national reporter Cameron Wolfe, who joins us to discuss not only a couple of Bills topics in anticipation of the 2025 season, but some AFC East topics as well, and some of the other opponents on Buffalo's schedule. So let's now check in with Cameron Wolfe. Cam, I know that we're kind of hitting a dead period in the offseason for the NFL, which is brief, as we all know, but still there are questions out there because people are wondering what certain things are going to look like for various teams across the league. And the one for me, obviously, we suffer from Bills myopia here, but we know the overhaul that the Buffalo defensive line underwent this offseason. They had an influx of free agent talent, Ogunjobi and Hoyt, who are both going to be out of commission for the first 6 weeks on suspension. Then the influx of youth in the draft. So a lot of new faces up front. The talent is tantalizing. Weaving it all together is the big question. Where would you rank that in questions for the Bills going into this season? Because they have a lot of roster positions solidified. This is one where, knowing their rotation, there's going to be a lot of churn there. How do you think it fits together?
Yeah, Chris, it's number one. That, to me, that's the number one question mark for this team. Do they have enough on the defensive front? Do they have enough pass rush? It's really been the question we've had the last few years of the defense just needing a little bit more of a closer coming in. And you mentioned the two defensive linemen that, are suspended early in the year. You also got Joey Bosa, who you brought in to be a finisher, who's already dealing with a little bit of a minor injury. The hope is he's back by camp, but I would be lying to you to say if it's not a concern that a lot of the eggs that you have kind of put in this basket right now are dealing with a little bit of a question mark early in the season. And then obviously you have Landon Jackson and TJ Saunders that you want to be able to contribute early too. But I'll tell you this, if we can get past September and October and some of those guys come back and Bosa's healthy and the rookies catch up, I do think they have enough talent in that room. I talked to Brandon Beane about this early in the draft period. They went in with the vision of, hey, we need some young guys to complement and build a long-term pass rush bunch. And they think that Ed Oliver and TJ Sanders can run inside together as double edge rushers. I love the idea of that. You obviously paid Greg Rousseau this offseason. And if you can get a healthy Joey Bosa, the potential is there. But right now, the unknowns certainly make it number one on question marks.
You talked about getting through those first 6 weeks with Larry Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt out of the picture. The Bills have their bye week 7. They don't face the Chiefs till week 9. The first 8 weeks of the season for Buffalo are looking like a nice tune-up in terms of the teams that they're playing. Yes, they have the Ravens week 1, but beyond that, it's looking like the Bills will be able to figure out who they are before facing the Chiefs. You couple their schedule with some of the newness on the defense. What are your expectations, early expectations for Buffalo's season?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nose in the fact that you get a little bit of a benefit with the schedule because you want to have some freedom to start off slow, for lack of a better word, if it needs to be. You mentioned the defensive new faces. We haven't even got to the cornerback room where you have a first-round pick and Maxwell Harrison that you ideally want to eventually be a starter. You're bringing back Trey White. You're still shuffling around in the safety room who's going to be the starter. So there's definitely a lot of uncertainty. So it wouldn't shock me if, hey, the first month of the season, the Bills weren't the AFC contender looking like on defense that we'd hope they'd be. But if you can get past that bye, you can get past some of the early schedule that looks a bit favorable, then you're on the ground running. And so I think, at least in my view, maybe you lose a game or two that people don't expect you to earlier, but we know this Bills team now and going forward will be judged on what they do in January. And so if they have to trade a September loss for a January win, I think they do that anytime.
James Cook kind of quelled concerns when he showed up to mandatory minicamp, and then Brandon Beane in a minicamp press conference basically said he expects James Cook to be at training camp on time, and said he expects him on time whether he has a contract or not. That perked up all of our ears because we're saying, oh, is there still some dialogue going on there? So I don't know if it'll happen before training camp, but maybe start of the regular season. It seems that there is at least a crack in the door opening there to maybe finding their way to some common ground on an extension.
Yeah, a crack is probably the right word. The door is cracked. It's not completely closed look, James Cook showing up for minicamp was a good sign towards progress and making it through this season without that potential deal. Both sides still want to figure something out. They're just different in the numbers. There's been no significant progress from what I understand since the last time we've talked about this. So nothing imminent. James Cook wants to be paid like one of the best running backs in the league. And, the Bills have a different number in mind. And obviously another year may convince them otherwise. And so I think right now we're probably going to enter the year with James Cook on the same contract, but, never say never. And deals can be done through deadlines. Otherwise, I certainly know the Bills need James Cook, and James Cook knows how valuable he is to the Bills. And so I anticipate this being relatively non-issue once we get towards the season.
Moving on to a team that you know very well in the Miami Dolphins. The Bills will see Miami first in Week 3 for a Thursday night game. What was your biggest takeaway out of Dolphins OTAs and mandatory minicamp?
Yeah, it's a different team. They are on paper, from what I've seen, less talented than they have been the last couple of years, which is interesting given, some increased pressure on them. They have been undergoing what the players call some sort of culture change, trying to change the leaders they have in the building. Jalen Ramsey is about to be exiting via trade sometime in the next month. They've been working on it for a while. They let go of Javon Holland in free agency. You had Jordan Poyer, who was here in Buffalo. He's not coming back. And, Calais Campbell, Teron Armstead leaving. And they replaced them with a lot of youth. And so they're betting on youth and development to help them through this next stage. Still question marks for them in the secondary on the offensive line. Can their quarterback stay healthy? But their thought is, hey, maybe we can be a little bit closer as a team, and that can help us not wilt in those November, December, January moments as they've had in previous seasons.
Yeah, I found Bradley Chubb's comments pretty interesting, saying we tried to change the culture last year, and for lack of a better term, we were halving it. But to me, this is perplexing, Cam, and I know like you're in that area most of the time anyway. So Mike McDaniel trying to enact a culture change like 3-4 years into his regime just seems perplexing. I would understand if they had, and I realize they're a team in transition to some degree to the comments you just made, but that's something walking in the door day one you want to try to enact. And I'm not saying he didn't try to do that then, but if he did, it seemed rather ineffective. I mean, we saw all the reports last year of players showing up late to meetings, getting fined, and then still showing up late. How big of a potential crisis could this be if this new plan of being more responsible, being more accountable to your teammates, being more accountable to your coaches doesn't take root here in the first half of this season?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Look, I've been around the building a while. They aren't talking about culture as this buzzword inside the building. It's not something Mike's bringing up, but it's pretty clear they want a different type of player based on the offseason, how it's gone, the guys who have left, the guys they've brought back in. They've had a lot of those conversations about accountability. I think one thing Mike has admitted, Mike McDaniel, is that early on he maybe gave too much trust to his players and wanted to be a player-led organization and how they ran things. And I think he's learned probably by being burned a little bit the last couple of years that he's got to have a little bit more control over discipline, over accountability. And can he change? And can the team change in a significant enough way in one offseason? I don't know. I think that's going to have to be results, not words. But there certainly is a huge question mark about this team's toughness. Can they play in colder weather? Can they play in the playoffs? And I think there is at least an understanding that we've got to actively do something to change that. So different people in the building doesn't mean it's going to be a better season. But that is their plan is, hey, we're going to go younger. We're going to find new leaders, and we're going to uphold ourselves in a different way than we did before. And if we've got to sacrifice some star power, some talent to do that, then that's the risk we're willing to take. And so the Buffalo will see very early whether or not it's the same Dolphins team they've seen in the last few years.
When you look at the AFC East as a whole, the Bills have had some retooling on defense, but look to be in a good seat to contend for that AFC East title once again. You've got the Jets and the Patriots who have a lot of newness to them, but a lot of people feel confident in what the Patriots have going on. That's because of their quarterback and their head coach in Mike Vrabel. When talking to national reporters this offseason, a lot of people have said the Patriots are the team who could maybe push Buffalo a little bit in season. When you hear that, and when the Dolphins may be out of that equation, what is the talk on the inside about the fact that Miami may not be that number 2 team anymore?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's teams in different trajectories, right? And it's all based off your quarterback, your youth, where you are on the contract. Drake May is a second-year ascending quarterback on a rookie contract, and so they were able to spend a lot more money in free agency, make some splashy moves. I really like Mike Vrabel as the head coach there, building that culture. So I don't know if they're ready this year to be able to challenge for a division title. That may be too soon, but they are certainly a team heading upward, a team that for years to come, Buffalo is eventually going to have to contend with. Miami is sort of in this, this fork in the road spot. They were the ascending team for the last 3 years, and now they've hit a plateau. Are they going to fall down to crater, or are they going to find a way to resurge? And right now, there's a lot of concern that they're going to crater. And so I think that's what you're hearing of different trajectories of the team. If I was still handicapping it, I'd probably say the Bills are the favorite in the division, and the Dolphins are probably second. But it wouldn't surprise me if we see the Patriots have an upswing and challenge the Dolphins for that second spot in the division. And the Jets, for that matter, too, with a new quarterback in Justin Fields and a new head coach in Aaron Glenn.
Last one I've got for you, Cam, because I know you've been working on this story, but, the Shamar Stewart mess, because there's really no other way to describe it at this point in time, with the Bengals. We already know they've got one pass rusher they're trying to deal with, and the word is they are at least talking with Trey Hendrickson's camp about an extension, because he's publicly said he's not playing under his current deal. But the Shamar Stewart thing, they got to get one of these guys figured out and fast, so they have somebody to rush off the edge week 1. I realize there's a lot of time between now and then, but still, we know that the Bengals are not a swiftly acting franchise historically. So how much do you see these two negotiations kind of dragging through the summer and potentially into camp in the preseason?
Yeah, it's a real issue. You don't have two of your most talented pass rushers on the field all spring, and now questions going into July. Let me start with Shamar Stewart, because holdouts for rookies are rare, but they're not impossible. And for this one, just to make it as simple as it is, it's based off of void contract language. Essentially, the Bengals are trying to put a language into the contract that his contract could be voided if he has off the field issues or otherwise. It's something they haven't done before. It would be the first time they're doing it with a first round pick. And so his team doesn't like being the guinea pig for this new trial. They say, hey, let's negotiate. If we're giving you this, give us some more signing bonus money up front, or give us offsets on our deal. And right now, neither side is budging right now, and they're talking precedent, and they're really staring each other down. And obviously it got really messy with Shamar Stewart going public and calling out them trying to win a negotiation before he's even stepped on the practice field. And Shamar's camp, from what I understand, is willing to let this linger through training camp if there is no deal. Right now, those are just words, but he does not need to be fined because he's not under contract. That being said, the Bengals signed their first-round pick last year, Amarius Mims, on July 22nd, right before training camp. So that's the next deadline. Ideally, the 2-3 days before you get a deal done, but if not, maybe this thing lingers. Trey Hendrickson's a little different. He wants a renewed contract. He is currently under contract, so he could be fined for missing training camp, up to millions of dollars. And so eventually there's going to have to be some bluff there. They've had conversations, but it's been very minimal from what I understand, and definitely not significant progress to say a deal is imminent. So, you got to think that somebody's got to say, hey, we're going to take the compromise deal. And right now there's just no direction. So the Bengals have historically started off really slow in seasons, and this is not something that's helping them in that department. So definitely in my eyes, a big issue for them to be worked out over the next month.
Last one for me, Cam. Take this anywhere you want. What's been your favorite storyline this offseason in the NFL?
Ah, man, let's take it down to Jacksonville. Travis Hunter, being a two-way player in college, Heisman Trophy winner, and now trying to electrify a franchise in Jacksonville that honestly hasn't had a lot to be excited about. I think it's so cool. Every time I've talked with executives, they know I touch Jacksonville a lot, and they want to hear about what's going on with Travis. How much offense is he really going to play? How much defense is he really going to play? You know, the Jags have been switching him off day on and day off with offense, defense. He does one each day. So there's like a cool element of what jersey is he wearing today. And he's been excellent so far, like as advertised, even playing less defense than offense, showing that natural playmaking ability. It makes sense why Jacksonville made that bold move to trade up to number 2 and give up a first round pick to do it. So there's nobody who's done it the way that Travis wants to do it. But I think this is a cool thing about our league, having something that hasn't been done before trying to be done. And I hope he does it. You know, I could see him being a 1,000-yard receiver as a rookie and catching a few picks on the defensive side of the ball. So I just think the rarity of that has made that the most intriguing storyline for me all offseason.
Yeah, good pick there. Cam, thanks for the time. Enjoy whatever downtime you've got left, and we'll probably see you making the rounds at training camp. Appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. I'll see y'all in camp.